First of all, President Trump has signed this executive order this week directing prosecutors to pursue criminal charges against people who burn the American flag during protests.
And you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail. You don't get 10 years, you don't get 1 month. You get 1 year in jail, and it goes on your record. And you will see flag burning stopping immediately.
Of course, President Trump isn't the first to call for the change. We recognise these two.
I hope, Mr. President, that we can pass a law that criminalizes flag burning and desecration.
Under my proposal, it will be unlawful to do the flag harm, no ifs, ands, or buts.
OK, the move attempts to bypass a 1989 Supreme Court ruling that declared flag burning protected free speech under the First Amendment. Trump instructed Attorney General Pam Bondi to seek changes under the laws, such as disturbing the peace. While the order doesn't set penalties, Trump claimed violators could face up to a year in jail. Should you be jailed for burning your national flag? I'm now joined by broadcaster Paula London and head of media at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim. Welcome to the show. Paula, let's start with you. What are your feelings about the burning it? Because you're wearing the flag. How would you feel if someone burned your T-shirt?
Well, actually, someone threatened to burn a Union Jack dress on Twitter this week. I'd be very, very offended. What upsets me so much is that people forget a lot of our war veterans, when they've passed away sadly fighting, they have the Union Jack draped over their coffin. So for someone to burn it, it just shows so much disrespect. And it's quite interesting because in France, you can go to jail. In Germany, you can go to jail for 3 years for desecrating a flag. And they've now just changed the law. So if you desecrate a flag that's not even their flag, you can still go to jail. And obviously in countries like Saudi that aren't democracies, you have very, very tough penalties. We're too soft in this country. And I think way too many people are too happy to bite the hand that feeds them. They come here, live off benefits, then they want to go and burn our flag or desecrate it. And anyone caught doing that, I think they should definitely be deported because we don't have a lot of jail space in this country.
OK, well, there's a lot going on within what you said. Let's take one of the things immediately. Reem, Saudi Arabia, one of the countries mentioned, we don't want to live in Saudi Arabia, right? We don't want to have a society where we would go to jail. Do you see this as intrinsically a free speech issue?
Absolutely. And the 1989 Supreme Court ruling that you mentioned is just one of 2 times the Supreme Court ruled that the desecration of the American flag is protected under the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects freedom of expression. That means you are allowed to say things that may offend people. I, like Paula, would probably be quite upset if somebody burnt the British flag. However, we do not have a right to not be offended. And in a free country, if we genuinely do believe in the right to freedom of expression, that does include being able to burn your own property.
Well, the interesting thing, Paula, is one of the parts I read, it's an executive order.
Yes.
And people are saying that it can't actually change the law as such. But they're getting around it by saying that if it breaks burning laws in America, then that's one of the ways that they can prosecute. But really, this is just a way of getting around this idea.
They're saying it's hate speech. So what they are saying is that because it's an executive order, they're effectively attempting to override a Supreme Court ruling, which anybody who understands the way that the American system works knows that this will not be possible.
Well, they're saying that if it incites violence. But is there any evidence? Do you think that someone burning the flag is an excuse for someone else to go off and commit some sort of violence?
If someone's burning a flag and they're near flammable materials, a lot of things can go up. But ordinarily, if you break the law, whether I was born in this country or if I was on a student visa or I was an asylum seeker or a work visa, we should normally face the same penalty. But I think in this case, if you are doing it, you're coming to a country which is your host country, you wasn't born here, you should be quite grateful because a visa is not a right, So
you're saying that only if you're a foreigner, this should be illegal, but if you are born in this country, it's totally fine? I haven't
finished. What I was going to say was, I think very, very, very few people that were born in this country would be rude enough to burn our flag. I feel that the large majority, if not everyone that would be burning the British flag, they wouldn't be born here, or generations weren't here. So I would think that they would be on a temporary visa.
I would say people certainly politically aligned on the far left, born here, maybe their families have been here for
still not many.
For
the Union flag it's a terrible thing to do, and I think a lot of people,
I think we're not arguing about whether. I agree with you. It's a disgusting thing to do.
Around the world, for being polite. We are polite people. Unfortunately, some of the countries
Paula says this point about people who aren't actually British citizens, let's say in the equivalent in America, people who are over in America for visas. Does the law apply to them as much? If you're in America on a visa, should you be kicked out?
The Constitution is very clear on this, and other amendments, for example, when it comes to voting rights, it is very clear that that is exclusive to citizens. The First Amendment is absolutely encompassing every single person on American soil. No matter where you come from, your rights are protected by the First Amendment, and as it should. I think we need a UK Constitution here in which our rights to freedom of expression are protected in the same way that it is in the US. I suspect this particular executive order will be struck down by the Supreme Court because it absolutely violates the right to freedom of expression. I'm not saying flag burning is good. Do not burn the flag. It is offensive. It is not a nice thing to do. However, if we believe in liberty, do we think that the state should have the right to tell you what you can and cannot do with your own property? I think not.
I think so. And I think also, my grandfather fought in the war, for instance. A lot of people that come over to this country, they don't have parents or grandparents that fought in the war for this country, and then some of them have passed away and had a flag on their coffin. So it's completely different. They need to show more respect to a host country.
I'm third generation. My grandparents came from North Africa. Nobody in my family would ever dare burn the British flag. But that's the point. This isn't about whether you're a British citizen or not, or where you come from in the world. Be respectful, and if you're not respectful, you tell that person, you shun that person. I wouldn't be friends with anybody that burned the flag. But should they be at the expense of taxpayers in prison?
No, they should be deported if they wasn't born in this country. They're on a temporary visa.
Well, OK, then how about this then? Someone coming over to the UK on a, as you say, a temporary visa, maybe even a student visa.
No.
Do you think if they were to burn the flag, the flag of the country that's hosting them, that would be enough to violate the terms of the visa?
I believe that freedom of expression should be universal.
Yeah,
no matter what your no matter what your visa status is, you should be allowed to be encompassed in that freedom of expression. Do you, if we believe in the right to individual liberty and freedom of expression, as a person,
I'm British. I have manners. We're known for having manners around the world.
But manners should not be legally required.
Yeah, but do you think this is a case of manners? I mean, it's like kicking someone out if they didn't queue or something.
No, it's completely different.
Which actually they probably should be.
You want to desecrate something that was put over someone that's passed away, protecting our country at war. So it's completely different.
I've got to say, I mean, this is a really interesting example. I'm pretty consistent on this. Lucy Connolly should have never been in prison. No. What she said was hateful. However, you should not be in prison for saying something that's hateful. I don't believe that those that burn the Quran, for example, should be in prison because, again, it's their property. They can do what they want.
I think no one should burn a Quran or Bible. I think that's just terrible.
It's not a nice thing to do, but should it be illegal? That's the question we're asking.
Yeah.
And
I think it should be. I do think, like, so many visas should be revoked in this country. Donald Trump does it. A lot of other countries do it. People come over, hate this country, and just stay and just burn stuff or just slug us off constantly.
There's a lot of Americans and British people that also hate this country. Where would you send them?
I don't think English people, as a rule, would be going to burn a flag.
But that's not true. We know that British people have burned the British flag.
Paula, I'd like to ask you a question, if that's all right. Do you see the argument that if we start giving away those rights that we hold so dear as British citizens, one of them being freedom of speech, at least ideologically, it's meant to be that way, whether it is in reality or not, but that if we were to start doing what you're possibly talking about, that then we lose part of what it is actually to be British in the first place?
Well, basically, we're a very generous country as well. So the people that are coming over here, I believe, you may disagree, the vast majority of people that would desecrate a flag wouldn't be British-born. They wouldn't do it if they knew they're going to get deported. Sometimes you just need to have, it's like a child. If you do something wrong, you're going to get a smack bottom or something. If we had rules, people wouldn't always break them. People just come here and think we're so lax, and that's the problem.
No, I mean, you could argue that...
We don't have enough prison spaces, so we can't just put people in prison.
Well, we're not going to be putting people necessarily in prison here. I mean, this is obviously, we're actually talking about something that's going on in America. There is something hypocritical. We're getting a lot of criticism from America that the UK that free speech is on the decline, and there is definitely truth to that. But something like this, where you have the American president going against the decisions that the Supreme Court has made, that very much puts the foot back on their foot, right?
Oh, completely. I mean, basically, we can say you're a bunch of hypocrites. You know, you've told the British, and I think they're absolutely right, that freedom of expression is entirely under threat in the UK. The fact that Lucy Connolly even saw the inside of a prison cell, I think, is proof of that. Nobody should go to prison for their speech. Nobody should go to prison for anything they do within their own lives, to their own property, in their own house. They should have that freedom, because that is what liberty means, and I believe in liberty wholeheartedly.
But it happens in Germany and France.
And they are not free countries. Do they have freedom of expression?
Well, they're Europe.
Germany and France both arrested people for hate speech. I don't believe any speech should be hateful, and any speech should be going to prison even if you believe it's hateful. And also, this is
threats to kill, that's criminal, so you can go to prison for that.
This is a fundamental point, right? Do you think that somebody like Lucy Connolly, who said something quite nasty on social media, should she have been to prison? I would say no, and I think that most people that believe in free speech would agree with me.
But we're talking about a flag, it's completely different.
But it's speech. This is about liberty.
It's desperation, it's fire, it's set in fire.
No,
it's
about liberty.
But I guess, yes, I mean, that would be the point. We've talked, obviously, a lot about Lucy Connolly, but it feels to me that this is, for you, more that people who are visiting
to not be
on visas. Do you think
offended.
people on visas essentially?
Because my grandfather fought in the war, you didn't for this country, so I am offended. Because even when let me finish. Even in America, when police officers they die, they have the flag over, and you see all of their family members crying. So I don't think it's ever acceptable for someone to burn that flag.
I don't think
they gave their life.
I don't think it should be illegal.
This is exactly the point. I think everybody in this room would say that burning the flag is wrong.
You should be deported if you're not born in the country. I wouldn't mind them going to jail if we had enough prison spaces, but we don't.
What about people with dual nationality, for example?
Deport them, or they go to. If they're not happy with this country, they want to be rude enough to burn the flag. Go back to another country where you prefer it.
Do you think being rude and having bad manners should be illegal?
We have too many people in this country. We have millions more than we're supposed to have. So it doesn't really matter if a few people are leaving that we don't want.
I understand you're upset. My question is, do you think that having bad manners should be illegal?
I'm not about bad manners. I'm just talking about setting fire to something.
And
flag when people are placed on their bodies.
You're offended.
I'm not offended. I have manners. Maybe you don't, Reem. That's the difference. I'm British, born for generations. I have manners, so I just think it's awful.
So, OK, well, look, taking Paula's point, do you think that anybody, even changing the law, that someone on a visa, that it should be part of the conditions, for example, getting a student visa in this country, that you wouldn't desecrate the British flag? You don't think that that is something that, for some people, I think most people would agree that if you're going to enjoy the hospitality of this country, that would be something that you would go into agreement with.
It's not really a thing that happens in this country anyway. I mean, in the American context, it's happened huge. I mean, in the Civil War, they burned American flags and it was a sign of political expression. I don't believe that you should be put into prison at the expense of taxpayers for a political expression.
How about deported if you're a student here on a visa and you're burning the flag at the weekend?
In the same way that I don't believe that somebody that is racist or xenophobic or whatever, or homophobic, should be put into prison for their speech, because freedom of speech applies not only to things that we may agree with or disagree with, but also things that are hateful. Free speech means defending the grotesque. It means defending the things that we do not like, because fundamentally...
That's what you think. It means different to different people, with respect. Like, I won't change my mind on what I've said. I think it's absolutely horrific. And if we had a lot of prison spaces, someone going to jail for a year, 6 months, no problem at all. Happens in France, happens in Germany, happens to loads of other countries.
I don't think we should look to European countries as a beacon of liberty. We should be looking at the Americans who have a constitution, and I think we need a First Amendment to protect our rights.
I agree with you, and I also think that there is hypocrisy with America coming up with this particular executive order. Anyway, thank you so much to Broadcaster Paula London and Head of Media Institute of Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim.